Yeah, do you see? Oh, we're live.
Broadcast. Yeah. Hi, I'm Amy.
And I am Heather, and we are the Experienced Empaths. Thank you for joining us for Ever So Clever Conversations with Amy and Heather.
Yeah, we're happy you're here. Today's theme is about women speaking up as empaths, highly sensitives, and intuitives are included in that as well. And like Heather said, this is episode 7. We're moving along here, you guys, to catch up on all these great topics that we're sharing. Our goal as experienced empaths is to really help sensitive people in the world to bloom during these really turbulent times on Earth. That's what we hope for.
Yes. And so we're on conversation 7 already.
It's incredible.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes. And Amy is joining us from out of town.
I am, you guys. This is not my house. I'm staying with a friend who is an incredible healer, and we're doing some healing work and some biking and some hanging out. So that's awesome. It's amazing. I'm grateful.
Yes. Yep. So we will travel, right?
Yeah, exactly. We'll have wheels, we'll travel. Heather, do you want to tell the viewers and listeners about how Streamyard works so that they know the process? Because we'd like to know who's posting if possible, just to connect to you quickly. But
yep. So I've used Streamyard in the past. For some reason, it looks like it's not going into our group. So I am not sure what that is today. But for those that are using we're using Streamyard, which is a broadcasting system. And that's something we'll probably be using. It lets us stream in multiple places. So if you are going to make any comments, for us to be able to see your name and image, you have to give permission to Facebook. And above this, I believe there is a way to do that. It's like a streamyard.com and a / something. I'm not for sure what it is, but there are instructions, I believe, above this video or below it. So it's just giving them permission to use your name and image. That way we'll know when you do make a comment who you are, and we can respond and have a conversation with you. And if you don't give them permission, it'll just say Facebook user. So it's up to you too. If you don't want to have your name, that's totally fine. I'm getting little notifications on the side. Sorry. So I'm looking.
I think it's funny. I wonder how many times with digital platforms like this, we say the words, I believe it's up here. I think.
Right? We're wondering. Well, and it says heads up, Facebook requires you to go live before 12:09, and I have. So I think we're just having an issue with the Facebook group.
Okay.
But I'm going to check our Facebook page.
That sounds good, Heather. I'm going to dive into the topic at hand to get rolling on that.
Yeah.
And Heather, are you recording this as well, or how does that work?
It does. It is.
Okay, great. So we will have this, if we can't get it this way, because it's our first time on StreamYard together,
yes,
that you can always load it there too, if so on. So if you didn't see
it is showing on our page at least. So
good. Okay. So the conversation we're having today is about, or not the deeper conversation, but the topics really are, how do empathic women speak up for themselves? And this to me is kind of an issue that is a much bigger piece of the puzzle of what we're doing on Earth right now in general, is we're really learning how to advocate for ourselves, this sounds so silly. And I think if I wrote a book about it and somebody read it in 200 years, they'd laugh because it seems so silly. But to actually be able to know how to address our needs, how to communicate with things in a way that's effective for us so that we receive what we actually need, that other people don't judge for us or try and know better for us. And I would say that is the clinching piece with highly sensitive empaths and intuitives, is they are so highly aware of their own knowing, but they're quick to believe others because they're generous in that way. And devolving that pattern of you do know best. And, Heather and I had this conversation about being at a restaurant in New York City. And at that restaurant, this man came over to us and said, who are you? Where are you from? And he was just social. He must have known the owner. It was very casual and easy. But he said, why are you in New York? And we said, we're here to listen to this speaker who speaks about highly sensitive people. And he said, oh, you're highly sensitive people. And all of a sudden, Heather and I both kind of felt later in conversation when this came out, we both sort of felt a little bit like he thought he could take advantage of us because we were highly sensitive. And so I made some snappy comment, but revisiting this story, I said to Heather, what I would say to him is, the reality is you think that this is a weakness, that we can be overtaken, But the reality is, I probably know more about you than you know about yourself. And that type of behavior and education is necessary for people who have no understanding about what this is. It would be easy to explain to them, well, highly sensitives are this and this and this and this. But I think a way to sum it up that helps people understand your power just showed up is really actually quite important, so that there is a movement out of understanding that this is a powerful attribute. Because we can say we process heavily, we are aware of far more, but when you put it into perspective that I actually probably know more about you than you know about yourself, that's how sensitive I am, is very eye-opening, because that we know, if you are an empath, highly sensitive or intuitive, is actually probably true. So the first thing I'm going to say is you must come back to trusting that you know for yourself, and what feels wrong and bad, something is, that inkling inside of you is to attend to. Now, we are in a time and an age where all opportunity is available to some degree. Even this friend that I'm staying with, she is learning the emotion code, which maybe you've heard of that. And I had an extraordinarily profound result working with her, where it built my confidence back where it used to be from something long ago. And I was just so surprised. It was so natural. So, while we might say that person is hurting me, when we're talking about the empath speaking up for themselves, particularly women, we want to set that up in a clear situation. So, Heather, I'm going to let you say some things, but then I have an example that I want to share as to something that just happened in my life that made things clear for my partner.
Yeah. Well, and we have some likes. So thank you for joining us and liking what we're talking about today. And I was going to say, just revisiting that story, and when that man kind of made that comment to us, oh, you're sensitive, I think we both kind of stopped, and we didn't know how to respond, because that's not something that we are normally here. And then we went on with our evening, and then we kind of talked about it later, because you're not really prepared to respond to people. And that's part of life too. You don't always have a comeback, right? And later on you think about, oh, I would have responded this way, or that's what I should have said. And, and that's life. That's how most of us, live our lives. But I think what I hear too with Amy is, if we have that self-awareness too of who we truly are, that can give you that sense of strength and power too. And then you just kind of know who you are. And that comment, it didn't make us upset it just kind of was like, oh, that's unusual that he made that comment, but it didn't break us or bring us down, right? We knew how, okay, that's your issue. So being in self-awareness, right?
That's your issue.
Your issue, you need to deal with that. But because we're aware of who we are and we feel strong in who we are, I think, but it could really hurt some people too, if you're just learning and you're not understanding. And I know I'll talk a little bit too, because my son is just coming to the realization of he has this sensitivity, and why am I different, and understanding that, and it's hurtful. And, but I know Amy has a story that she wanted to share. So I'll let you share your story, Amy.
Yeah. So I think for us, we tend to please as these sensitive people, and it's our nature. It's not necessarily a defunct, you're codependent, that's terrible, and we get confused in that. But with my husband, there's been a journey of learning how to communicate with him. Of course, in any relationship there is, but it's been a little trickier for me for some reason, and probably based on how I was raised and yada yada. But I am really prone to getting mosquito bites, right? They love me. And my husband had seated us outside with some friends, but because it's COVID, right, he seated us so that the friends had the advantage of being on the patio, and then we were out in the yard in the grass. And he had set it up in a way where he could have just reversed that so that everybody could have been on the patio, but we could have been separated to some degree. But I became sullen. There we are with our friends having a good time. One of them shared something that I really wanted to push back on, and I just could not find the buoyancy and my power inside to do that, because I really felt sullen. And then later, when we got in the house and they had left and so on, he said, what happened for you there? And I said, I made some things up, you guys. I really postured in this way of trying to make something, like the sullen part. I tried to describe what was happening with that, but that wasn't what was real. So then I asked myself, what is really more true about that? And I sat him down on the couch the next day and I said, you know what? I think all of that I said was a lie. I don't think that's really what was going on. But what I think was going on is I believe the people who are close to me in my life won't actually think about me. They won't think about Amy needs to sit on the patio. And he also had it set up so that we had to sneak out of our back door and then like sneak around somebody when we were way too close to them. So it's almost like we had to walk out the front of our house and around to get to where we were seated. So like, it didn't make any sense. He could have put us by the door. So I said, I feel like people won't think of me. And he responded exactly like I would want. And he said, I am so sorry. That must have hurt you, right? He could understand. So I think, you guys, we can spew some BS. I mean, we can because we know that we're hurting, but we don't know where that hurt is specifically coming from. So I would ask you, because you are depthy, take that to a deeper level, and you might be operating off of sullen or whatever yours is, but take it to the deeper level of what really happened. How did your partner or your person or whoever it is really let you down? You know, and I could have said that you let me down. So try and go there so the communication is crystal clear, because then my husband could actually meet me and do it in a way that made complete sense. He was emotional and loving, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I think kind of to what you're saying, I feel like it goes back to even as us as children, a lot of us were quiet or told not to speak up. And we're kind of talking about this, you and I, Amy, as women, we see that too. And then taking it to being an empath or sensitive, it's even another level. So, you know, there's these issues of maybe childhood and then being a woman and then being sensitive. So it's a whole lot. And I know that for me, it has some of that people pleasing where I didn't want to hurt somebody else's feelings. So I didn't speak up, or I was not one to want to be in drama. So I kind of played both sides maybe, or was trying to make, and this is what I'm seeing with my son, like, I don't want to be on your side or your side. So I'm in the middle, and that upsets people because they're like, pick a side. And it's like, no, I'm not that way. I don't want to be involved. And that's people pleasing probably as well. But I did see myself speak up when I had eventually in my life, it was later on, but when I had to advocate for my children, because it took the focus off of me and it was about my child. So I noticed that if it wasn't attention onto me, I could speak up more easily for my daughter. But that was later too, I think, as I was becoming stronger. Yeah.
Well, and Heather, there are a lot of things. That's awesome. Like, I love what you shared there. I feel like that is something I have shared with people is if you can't do it for yourself, you can't see it, put yourself in the shoes of being the parent to a child. If you have kids, you understand exactly what Heather's talking about. We do advocate for them. We don't hold back. And so if you can emulate that for yourself,
right.
Like what would I say if I were to advocate for my child, but then do that for yourself? That's a really great technique. I wrote down 2 notes. That, you know, with Heather's son, I have a pen here, I'm taking some notes, but with Heather's son, another thing that she brought up is he stays in the middle, which the middle is where the power is. So he's not trying to go to the control or the enabling, but with that power, people who are highly sensitive make natural negotiators and mediators. And the reason is because we see the whole picture and we can actually make the best conclusion for everybody involved. Like, we really think that way. So that's why we might naturally fall there too. Like, that's the advantage, the good part of it. And we might feel torn. And your son, right, might have to say, like, I can be with you guys and hang with you guys when it's this. Like, you might have to set boundaries. That's another good way to communicate for kids and women in this empathic situation, to be able to know how does it work for you, or where for your son does the control become too much for that group, and the enabling or whatever they're doing become too much. Really important cues to watch for yourself and for your kids. The other thing is, you know, this is a small one, but I think it's important for us too, is we are sensitive to things like fragrance, and especially things like music that's too loud in a restaurant. Those are ways to ask to have the music turned down. Hey, are you able to turn that down? And if they're not, you might choose not to eat there and just get takeout and go. But really being aware of, I know when I go out, if I have to yell at the person I'm with, I really do not enjoy that. It's very
Right. Yeah.
So things like that too. Those are small ways to ask, but that also helps you ease into these bigger pieces of saying to friends, no thanks, it's not for me.
Yeah. And I know Cheryl is here. I saw a comment from her. Yeah. So if you have questions or examples too, feel free to comment. I mean, this is more of a conversation for everyone. As Amy and I say, we're experienced, and I like to say too that we're not experts. So everyone has their own experience, and we love to hear that as well. So we're just here to share our experiences and what we see happening. What else? I know. Oh, systematically, we were going to talk about too.
Yeah. Do you want to lead that off, Heather?
Well, as a whole, I don't know. How do we make change, right?
Right. I mean, I think that, I guess I can take it, is, the thing with systematic, or I feel like our system that we live in, I'm going to go there, the big picture, is not necessarily conducive to the empath, intuitive, and highly sensitive. Although what we've shared today are some strengths of that attribute, those attributes within people. And I think that that's the important thing to arch forward in, is where does my power show up, and questioning that and allowing yourself to find that space so that you get what you need, because needs are also very important. But the greater system of how things work is kind of stacked against us a little bit now, because the world is set in this tone of aggression, and you have to be like, you have to speak up in class, and you have to be the person who's very convincing and can prove it, even though your facts might be false. And that's where we get a little turned off, because we are thinking that doesn't really add up. Like, we know that, we can feel that. So being aware of how you fit into that world, and that being quiet actually is a massive boon in things like business, and all over our world is really important. Like you saying, please turn that music down at the restaurant, actually is probably serving most people, because the highly sensitive, empath, intuitive, what works for them kind of works for everybody to some degree. I mean, maybe not across the board, but most likely, because we are sensitive. It's too much sensory information, and that is going to support others in how they think. We're the most, I don't know, I use the word uptight. I don't like that, but I don't know how else to say it. So if we use that uptightedness, that we can bring it to a level that's more palatable for us as well as others. And I think that's important. I also think there's a book called Quiet by Susan Cain, and she really discusses how things set in motion for this gregarious personality type to be the thing that was fawned over and desired, especially in America, across the board, business, politics, and so on. And I think that book sheds a lot of light on how the merits of who we are. So you might check into that too, because she shows the system of how this started, what perpetuated it, and how top universities in the country, if you didn't speak up and were gregarious in class in the first 2 weeks, they don't really want you. But in other cultures, she highlights how the teacher knows and the student just does the thing, like they think for themselves, but they don't have to stand up and share all these things, and they have nothing to prove. And it's really nice. It's really like, oh, there is a place in the world.
Right.
We don't do this.
Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else we want to cover on this conversation?
I think, Heather, let's take it to the deeper conversation.
Okay.
Post this conversation, we have a deeper conversation and take the topic further. And that is something that is actually a paid-based membership, and that's through Patreon. And you can link to that on this post somewhere. I think Heather's probably got it there.
Yeah, I don't have it here, but I'll post it on after. I know we're new to this. Yeah. So
the thing with Patreon, you might be familiar with it or not, but Heather and I are looking at a platform to share this information and get it out to the masses, as well as the payment that you're putting in there is a way that we can have the time and the space to be able to do writing and spread this word even farther in this message that we think is so important. So that's the work we're doing. And there are 3 different tiered levels. So take a look at that and see, what fits you and where you fall in, and what type of support we can share with you So take a look at that. And then the first tier, which is only $3 a month, offers you the deeper conversations that we have. So that makes it pretty accessible for everyone.
Yeah. And then I don't have it written down, Amy. What is conversation number 8 next week? Do you have it there?
Being ahead of the curve, empathic parents and COVID-19.
Oh, right.
Your fears and how we address that and how we look at it. Yeah.
I think that will be a great topic, especially now that we're looking at schools. You know, are they opening? Are they not? Are they halftime? All of that, and what's going on with that. So that will be next Tuesday. We hope you join us.
You live. I have a personal thing to say that I know a policymaker that's close to me, and they are distraught. They are just riled up because, and I'll talk more about that maybe at our next one, but because they don't know what to do. And so we don't have the privy to getting into that world of who is making the choices and the decisions. And it's a distressing situation. Lots of polar opposites coming at them, and there is a way to navigate it that's successful. So that's positive.
Yes. Okay. Well, we'll look forward to that next week. And thank you for joining us live or on the recording. And hopefully you'll hear our deeper conversation. All right.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Oh, Cheryl, I'll send you a message about how to access the link on the deeper conversation. Thanks for joining us live, though. So I'll send you a message. Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.